Hi, I'm George Nordhaus, and we're back at Monday morning. Got an interesting one for you today because something new that about stewardship. And if you don't know about stewardship, well, it's past time you learn, because you're going to learn a good bit about what I think is got to be a major answer for independent insurance agents. And Steve Strong is the producer. He's been with in the insurance business for like 18 years or something like that. He's down in Louisville with Logan and Lavelle Hunt Insurance Agency, one of the top agencies in Kentucky for sure, and even in Indiana, my old hometown. I'd like to see you expand over there, Steve. It kind of makes me feel, good, nice to know that you're coming all the way over to Indiana. Well, listen, well, how'd you? Let's talk about your service situation or service system. Where did it ever come from?
Where did it come from? Well, basically where it came. Okay, the idea really came from. I got very tired of playing the pricing game.
Yes, sir.
And you would go out and you'd see customers and clients and things of that nature and try to attract and obtain new business. And the old way that I was taught was go out there and just see if you can match some coverages and save them $1. And the problem is that that's all I was ever taught early on. And it didn't give me the real ammunition, because if I was backed into that corner, that's all I had. And so it got very frustrating. So I thought, well, there's got to be something more out there. So I started attending some classes and some seminars and things, and I attended one particular thing where it talked about value-added services, adding more for the same amount. They can pay the same amount for the insurance yours, but if you can give them more, it's more attraction. And this is kind of how it came about to become a stewardship program.
Well, I sure like the concept. It's just it's fascinating to me. I don't know why we haven't heard more about it. So you've come up with one of on your own then, huh?
Yeah, it's basically, like I said, what I've done is after hearing a lot of different ideas, it became something that I started using in the areas of how to define service, if you will. If I would go in and speak to a client or a potential client or someone, and I was always looking for things that we could do better, and I think we add a lot of value with Logan Lavelle. But when you ask someone how their current person, agent, agency does, they always say it's got good service. But then when you say, well, define it, or ask a more pointed question, or, for example, well, what do they do that's so good? Well, anytime I call up there and I need proof cards, or if I need a certificate or something, they get it to me right away. Well, to me, that's just reactive servicing. There's no real proactive approach to it. So what this program does is it actually defines what proactive servicing is, and it provides the client with something that's really measurable. And that's what we're trying to do, separate ourselves from our competition.
Well, let's talk about some of the benefits. What are the benefits as you see them?
Well, like I said, the very first one we talked about is defining what really good service is. As I mentioned earlier, the main benefit is if you tell somebody they're getting good service, but then they start asking what's good service, they struggle with it. Well, now we're given the ability of defining it. So I'll put in a number of things that are written down that we're going to provide, that preferably something they have defined to me in a discussion that they don't have. So now I'm putting something in that's going to be value added, because as I mentioned earlier, if they're going to pay the same amount, maybe $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 in insurance premium, and they got nothing here, now they're paying the same amount or more or less, and they're getting more. Now they're getting more for the money, and we're defining it on paper.
And you're setting yourselves apart, yeah, for sure.
Exactly. That's the next point right there. I mean, you're going to set yourself apart because nobody does it. I will go in and I'll ask this question: can I see your proactive service approach? What?
What the hell is that?
What? And it's, well, what is that? Well, that's a program where your agent or your staff or your insurance program is going to inform us of what they're going to do for you in the coming year. And they say, well, we don't have it. What? You don't have that? And then they're like, so now you'll get some additional discussion on it. And in part 3, it gives you opportunities in renewal time, because what you've now defined is what you're going to do in a year. And if you define the steps you're going to do, you're going to constantly remind the clients of what you are doing for them, other than just give them a proof card or a certificate.
Right.
So it gives you the ability to do that and round out accounts. It also gives you the ability for good quality actual feedback with the client. So you're telling them what you're going to do, then you're going to do it, then you're going to get the feedback from at the end of the year about how you did. And then that's going to help you developing the relationship for the next years to come. And finally here, it gives you the ability to obtain information to fight off your competition, because now what we're doing is by defining the services and so forth, and they don't come in and they talk like every other agent, well, let me see if I can save you $1. Well, I've already talked to them about, at our renewal time, about what we've done, and if I know, for example, if they ask me for loss runs, well, I'm going to say, so you're going to shop it, and then now I can go back through what they've given me as their feedback of how we've done and say, well, why would you want to fire us? Well, then they always want to think twice. If they're going to fire an employee, if that employee's a good employee, they're going to think about laying a person off from the same perspective. They're going to think, if I lay this guy off, this may affect someone's family or may affect someone else. Well, it's the same exact thing. If they're going to fire us, to hire a new agent, they're going to have to fire us. So if we've done a good job, why fire us? And that gives us some additional information to fight off that competition.
Gotcha. Sorry, everybody's ringing at once here. What about the negative aspects of it, though?
Well, the negatives are exactly that, because nobody else is doing anything like that, or there's very few that I've ever come across that are doing it. What you're doing is you're committing more time. The typical agent is going to write an account, and he's going to see them next year, if at all, if the CSR doesn't take care of it. But in this situation, you're actually going to have a sit-down with them, and you're going to commit more time for the same amount of money or same amount of commission or dollar. But what that also does, and you can call it negative or positive, but the positive to it is it is going to keep you accountability on that client and focused on maintaining the promises you've done, and hopefully that's going to end up in higher retention levels for you.
Well,
that's a positive.
Yeah, that's a positive, right? Okay. When you go in, here's now when you go into, you're talking to a guy at first, I guess, huh? Is this the way it starts? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Well, presentation solution. Now, this is basically what I would call a presentation solution. Whether this is going to be at renewal or when you're trying to write an account, somewhere prior to that, you probably have 1 or 2 meetings with the customer, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish what Logan, Lavelle, Hunt, and Steve Strong can do for them.
Right.
So we're going to be looking for holes in coverages. We're going to look at service opportunities that were missed. We're going to try to look for things. We're going to add value. We're going to try to get them thinking about what could have happened. It didn't happen, so they didn't feel a pain. So we're going to find the pains, and if we have pains that say we're going to move forward, there's where your presentation of solutions are going to come in. Most of in this service program, the solutions are going to be that they never had a value-added service program or proactive service approach. So we're pointing those things out. So when we're presenting the price and the coverages and the vehicles and the things, we're putting down the service plan in writing. And what that's doing is going to establish a program for them for the next year and 3 years of what we're going to do. For example, I've got over here over the next 3 years is a cycle. I put that next 3 years into a cycle because, as you know, many times when you write an account, you may write the account because the prior agent held it with a company for 20 or 30 years and the rates have been high, and we've gone in and we found a much lower rate with more coverages or things of that nature. Well, in their mind now, hey, I didn't quote that, so now I got taken for granted. Well, I'm not going to let that happen again. Well, if that's one of those scenarios, I'm going to let them know what a program is in year 1 and year 3. We're going to follow that program, letting them know that in the end of year 3, I'm going to shop it with all of our companies so that they don't get caught in a hard market at a high level when they could have got a lower number. So I'm going to tell them we're going to ride that roller coaster with them.
I like that 3-year thing too, because now you're thinking long term, and you're getting that right in the minds of that prospect.
Absolutely, and what it does, like I said, by doing it on a 3-year cycle, hopefully you're getting their mindset out of thinking they have to shop it every single year, because underwriters don't want to see that every single year, and they don't want to see something in their desk every single year, and they're going to quote it and not get it. So they're going to end up getting to where they don't even want to see an account. So if you And we deal with a lot of construction contractors that do a lot of bidding, so they sometimes think they want to do it. I try to get them out of that mindset and thinking about a 3-year cycle. And the reason I use 3 years is because what's the first minimum thing an underwriter's going to ask for if you quote an account? They want 3 years of loss runs as a minimum.
Right.
So that's the cycle we stay on.
I like it. Let's look at what you sign with them or give them.
This is a typical example of what we're going to put together. What we're setting up is our stewardship program. Now, like I said, this is the promise or the commitment that we're making to them. So, if you will, you assume that you've already shown them proposals of the coverages. This is where we're putting in the service plan. And so, for example, in this particular one, November the 1st, that would be, let's say this is a new client and they're making a decision. Okay. November the 15th would be our meeting date, and probably the assumption is a lot of things will start on the 1st. Let's say December the 1st is their starting date. So we're presenting a solution to their problems, which we have defined in 2 or 3 meetings prior. Assuming that we write the account, we're going to come back through underwritten and processing. We're going to come back at policy delivered. So we're basically going to go over what we sold them so that they know that based on the quote, if something happened in underwriting, we missed a vehicle or something, we're going to point these things out, whatever they are. But then they're going to see what they bought. Then we're going to go into the midterm review. This is probably the most important meeting to the cycle, because at midterm review, these are just some simple things. If they add employees and they don't tell you, you and I know, everyone else out there knows that they're going to get an audit. Well, they may not want that big bill, and they don't give them a lot of payment options on it. So if at mid-cycle we find out they've added 2 or 3 employees, we can go back to the company and request an increase in the payroll numbers. Now, it'll inflate their bills, but it's better to have a little bit of payment as opposed to getting a big audit bill. Or conversely, if they had a difficult time, we might be able to talk to them and maybe free up a little bit of money with the underwriter, and that frees up a little bit of money, and that makes you look like a hero too. But it's also a good time to where you can talk to them off of renewal term. You can talk to them about some of the other services that we have. I mean, we've got a great health insurance company or program here that we work with a number of associations. We've got wealth management programs. We've got bond departments. I can ask them questions like, for example, do they ever do any bonding jobs or need bonding for jobs? And that's just a great discussion to reiterate all the things that we do and get their minds thinking in those areas. So it's a good opportunity to get expiration dates or add-on sales or things of that nature, and you're using it around a proactive approach just to monitor and maintain an account while you're doing that or claims reviews. So, and then we go down to the pre-renewal. Well, that's back through the cycle. This now is in our first year, if you will, of this client. So we're going to go through the process again. If they're in their first year and they know we're not going to aggressively shop it, but renew with a particular underwriter, we're going to let them know what the state of the market's doing. If rates are trending up or they're trending downward, here's what we can expect. We're going to review it, and then we'll update driver's list vehicles again. So once again, we're having those discussions. And then we're, of course, going to do our renewal proposal or so right before the actual renewal date. So this basically puts 4 or 5 times a year where I have reached out to them, not them reaching out to us, but I'm reaching out to them. And that just constantly adds the value. And, of course, the last thing is I sign to a commitment that I will do that, and there's where the accountability comes in, because just like anybody, you sign on the dotted line for anything, it puts more heat on you, to make sure you're doing the job.
I bet those guys have never seen this, have they? I never have. Huh?
I can tell you every time I ask for one, I've never seen one. And I love going in when they don't have it.
Well, I don't blame you. It's a beautiful thing. Well, let's talk about I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, I haven't seen one.
I haven't either. Well, let's talk about your report card. I like this idea. I've never seen this until you came along either.
Well, the report card, once again, if you remember on the last page, we talked about the pre-renewal meeting. Well, this is where you're going to bring out your report card. Now, you've got an example here, but the primary thing that you'll see here shortly, this is something we're going to bring out where during the renewal, where we're updating the items, the vehicles, the discussion, we're also going to talk about we made a promise. Now, did we deliver the promise? This is where they're going to give us feedback in areas, and they're going to rate it in areas. of did we come out when we said we were going to come out? Did we meet our agreement? Did they add value? Did our CSRs do the things they needed to do? And they're going to give us scores. And you can do it in any number of ways. I've provided an example here on the next slide. You'll see where we talk about specifically, but there it is. So here's an example where now this is a generic thing. If this was a typical client, what I try to do is build in specific things that they've done in the discussion. So in the middle section, we see customer service, and Crystal Griffith is the person here that handles most of my business. I would put things in here that are specific to her. For example, if this Any Client Incorporated made 6 calls to get certificates or 8 calls to get proof cards or to change or certain changes, I would ask them questions in here. Hey, you made so many calls to Crystal. How long did it take it? How would you rate, her personality or something of that nature, so that it makes it, this is a generic form, but it makes it more personal to that client. So now that client has the ability to actually develop a relationship with her and Logan Lavelle without, to be able to develop that relationship based on what experiences they've had. So now it just draws us closer into that relationship and makes them feel as if we are walking hand in hand in this process. Go ahead.
When you get it, when do they give it to you? Give it back. I mean, you take it and you get it, and they hand it, and they do it right then and hand it back to you, or?
Very important. Another good question. Very important to do it with them, because that opens up the dialogue. Yeah, you don't hand it to them and ask them to feed it back. It's like if you do that, it's sort of like those survey monkeys. I mean, they may fill it out, they may not.
Right.
You're going to actually go through it, the renewal process, and ask for the feedback, because I've gone through this sometimes, and some people have gone through, and they love it, and they want more, and they may want to expand to 4 meetings. Others will go through it, and they feel like they're too busy, and it might be redundant to them, and they may want less. But the main thing is you're developing, and you're developing the service plan around what the client wants and what the client thinks they need, and you're answering those questions. So it's more of personalizing the service. As I mentioned, the whole goal is defining good service for them and letting them see it and measure it, and that's the key to me. Is they're measuring it.
Yeah,
because even at the bottom, you'll see that overall score.
Yeah. And then the claims, if they had claims, you make damn sure they're done. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you had the claims, if you did have claims, you'd want to put in some specifics here. And here, like on question 1, it says, was claim handled properly by the company? Well, what I would do is actually put in, hey, you had this at-fault accident, or you had a liability loss. It looks like it was opened and closed within 30 days. How do you feel about that? Was that right amount of time, less, that sort of thing? So you're going to make it more specific.
Good. I like this. This is really good. It just puts you right on the spot. You give it back to Crystal when you get back and go over it with her or whomever, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely, it's not, this whole program is the ability to get additional feedback. So, and Crystal is the type of person that provides, I mean, she puts her heart and soul into the service the same way I would, and she wants to know when she's doing a nice job, and she wants to know what the clients think of them, and it gets good feedback. So if there's something that she did or didn't do that may have not been good for the client, she's going to want to know that, but generally speaking, she gets high marks all the time. I mean, she's always very punctual, and just, I couldn't ask for a better person to handle my accounts.
I love to hear that. It really works. Let's talk about the benefits of the stewardship here on our last slide. What about it? Let's go over it.
Well, like I said, once again, when we're talking about it, like I said, it gives us the ability to offer better service and not just a price. And that was the biggest thing. I wanted to keep it out of the price handling. I wanted to provide better service. So the main thing is we're defining what good service is. So we're giving that promise. We're signing it. We're also putting it in a proactive service approach, and then we're getting feedback from the client. So that allows that client to see what's going on with their accounts, and it's measurable. Beforehand, good service wasn't measurable. It helps in a number of areas. It helps in providing the accountability with the agents Once again, we talked about measurables. That's key to define that service. One of the things I talk to them, it also helps when you're being hit with competition, as it mentions here, whether or not they should fire you or not. As I mentioned earlier, when they're looking to lay a person off, as I mentioned, I deal with a lot of contractors. When they're going to lay a contractor off, the person's going to think long and hard about it. Well, that's one of the things I want them to think about if they're going to replace us. And if we can provide them with examples with this report card and service program, it's kind of a weapon, if you will, against other agents, because they're going to see what we're doing, and it's measurable. And in this world where everybody thinks insurance is the same, and we all know it's not, we want examples of how we're different, how our agencies are different, and how we're different. And so if a guy comes in behind me, now I've taken it away from the guys who didn't do these things. Now I'm providing this, and now we've got an example of where if the other guy comes in and he does the same thing the old guy did, where he just wants to look at your autos and see if he can save you $1, well, now my client has a good example of why that guy's just like everybody else. And a good example, my boss Stan was with me a couple of months ago. We had a meeting in Lexington, but I had to stop in. I was doing an exact renewal on this particular guy. And while we were having the discussion, the gentleman we took him from was one of those typical agents. He's resting on his laurels. Well, this account has grown exponentially. But I've been following this program. I've developed this good relationship. Well, Stan comes with me, and he asked a couple of questions. And one of the things he mentioned to Stan was, the guy might have been able to be the price, but he said, the service I've had with Steve and Logan Lavelle over the last 3 years, he thanks Stan for me, because he said, I don't think that guy who wants to come back, I don't let him quote, because I don't think he'd ever provide the service that we're providing for him, all because we're following these programs.
Isn't it funny that that more agents haven't done this? I mean, it's strange. I'm not, well, even in your own agency, but you've got producers like them.
Nobody's ever taught this. And what is it? Zig Ziglar used to say, I went to one of his seminars, and one of the things I remember him saying, formal education will earn you a living, self-education will earn you a fortune. Huh. And this is some of the things that you'll pick up if you're willing to pick up and read and study and do the things. And that's what this company, my company here, Logan Lavelle, has given me the ability to do. I mean, they've given me a number of examples and things, and I've had people in front of me that's helped me and patterned me and led me into directions to start reaching out. That's why I obtained my CIC in 1.5 years, because Stan had encouraged me to take the first course, and I took the first one, and the first class didn't go so well, but it motivated me enough to start learning what I didn't know. And when I passed that first one in 1.5 years, I finished my CIC.
So, I know it well. Well, you've done a job, man. I love this. You know what? What I particularly love the fact that you're touching these people constantly, letting them know about you. You're creating that relationship. I'm really into creating relationships. I think that's going to be my future for the rest of my career here. I'm going to encourage that. Go ahead.
It's the key. It is the key. I mean, the more you see them, the more you talk to them, and you develop that professional relationship with them. And it's not obviously it's hard enough and not everybody can do it, but when you put your servant's heart out there, that's your focus, you have to treat those clients, because this is their business, this is their livelihood. You've got to add value, you've got to have that approach, you've got to take that seriously, because it is important. And years ago, when I was a young agent, I was in my first or second year working for a personal lines company, and a tornado came through. And that's when I had the understanding that, maybe the personal opinion of the agency or the insurance world is not very good, but at that moment, when they lose everything, you meant something. And that's when I knew I'd chosen the right career.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to end this short presentation. And knowing you'll, if anybody wants to know more, you'll answer their questions, because you always pay it back, and I always heard that, and so they can call you if they would like to know how to do it, or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, as I've mentioned to you in prior discussions, I've been with Logan Lavelle for 7-8 years, and coming here that certainly was an issue that certainly changed my life. And the owners here have always been supportive, and any time I've ever gone with anything I need, they've always supported me. And I've always taken the approach with any younger producers, or whether they work here or not, if there's ever anything I can do to help them, I would be willing and happy to try to help. I just think this is a great career, and it matters, and it provides value. And if there's something that I could ever do for anybody, I'd be happy to take a call just to try to help them, because it's been done for me, and I want to pay that forward.
That's a beautiful thing. I wish I'd said that, and I probably will from now on. Anyway, folks, thanks, Steve, for this. And you can go back to your email, and if you want to get the archive of all of these, you can get there at AgenciesOnline, one or Rough Notes, homepage of either one, and you can get the archive, take it on back. You'll have this one, Steve. Steve, I would suggest that you make sure that each of your producers hears this, sees it, feels it, tastes it.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sure they'll hear about it. So.
Yeah, they're going to hear about it from the boss. Okay, listen, thanks again. For the rest of you guys, I'll see you next Monday morning.
Thank you, George.